And here we are, he's gone himself. This could win him the Tour of Britain. Oh my goodness me, look at that goal. He's left the rest for dead. Here they come into the closing stages. Those weary legs, he asks for a little more power. Oh, it was so close.
5 down, 3 to go. Today's stage takes us to the top right-hand corner of England, and in a race which has become increasingly hard to predict, who knows what might happen out on the road today from Darlington to Gateshead. There was barely time to catch breath after yesterday's start in Hull before the attacks began. 10 men got away over the Humber Bridge, and Matt Goss got to the toll booths at the other end first. When the race began to take shape again, 5 men were away, including Danilo De Luca, Goss and yesterday's winner Edvald Boasson-Hagen. All the way up the North Sea coast, the bunch kept up the pressure. Boasson-Hagen looked strong despite his exertions of the day before, and De Luca digging deeper than ever. 5 men held them off before they became 3 and eventually 1.
It's Boasson-Hagen that gives the victory salute to win stage 5.
So big up to the big Norwegian, but nothing really moved in GC after yesterday's trip to the woods. Le Quatre still leads Cummings by 6 seconds, and everyone down as far as Garmin's Dan Martin are within realistic striking distance, though Russell Downing in 10th may have left it a day too late to make his move. LPR's Jairo Ermetti was the big loser of the day, shedding nearly 12 minutes on the road and disappearing off the leaderboard. So, as we can see, there's plenty of British representation at the top end of the GC, but Paul Manning, no stage wins so far. In fact, you remain the last British stage winner of the Tour of Britain, and taking nothing away from you, that's perhaps not what we wanted to see.
No, I mean, we still have a lot of riders in contention for the overall. We've got 3 guys in the top 5. Young Dan Fleeman, a rider on the up, who's just signed with the Cervelo test team. He may well be challenging for the overall with the other 2 guys that are in the top 5. But it's true, we still want to see a British stage winner as well.
And it's testament perhaps to the strength of the opposition. I mean, this has been a quality race, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's hard racing, hard fast racing, and little opportunity to get away. But there'll be a couple of guys like Rob Hales, Chris Newton, both local riders, local knowledge and local interest that they want to do the business today.
Yeah, Chris Newton, of course, is from the northeast, and Rob Hales, who finished second in London to Alessandro Patacchi, despite his accent, actually lives up in the northeast.
If I'm in with a sniff for the win, then I'm going to be trying. You know, the other day I got in a break, but unfortunately we had one of the LPR guys who was only a minute or so off of GC, so that obviously made it hard for the bunch as well as the group away. So we'll see what happens today.
I am pretty tired. It's been tough first 5 days, so hopefully the local knowledge of the roads will just give me a bit of respite. So maybe I can pull something out of the bag, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's possible the way I'm feeling at the moment. But you know, never say never. We'll give it a go.
All these years, you've really picked up a strong Geordie accent as well, haven't you?
Allegedly.
Well, Paul Manning, Chris Newton didn't strike me as that confident.
No, he's got tired legs, but there's a lot of people in the group that've got tired legs, and these are the days that maybe just mental toughness carry you through.
Excellent. Well, I sent Paul Manning, our fledgling reporter, off to talk to the Team GB manager, Max Sciandri.
Max, we've been talking about having a British winner all week, and we're still waiting for one. What are the British team going to do about it today?
Well, we got Ian Stannard up there, got Ben Swift with the Mountains jersey, and I'm on them every day, pressure's on, so we don't give up, you know. I told them it's an everyday race. We have to take it day by day, you know. It's not we plan for the last day, we just go, today is our day and we go for it.
Well, I wish the boys good luck today.
Well, that's quite enough banging the British drum. There is, of course, a race leader on the Tour of Britain, and he just happens to be the very talented Frenchman, Geoffroy Le Quatre. I've just spoke to him this morning. 3 days you have left, 6 seconds, but actually, if you carry on riding as strongly and as bravely as you can do this, can't you? You can defend those 6 seconds all the way to the finish now.
Yeah, I can, because we have the really strong team. A great team is strong, and we have some good rider for the sprint. if we can do some bonification too with other friend Romain Feuillu, is fast too. For sure, it's better to have 6 seconds more than 6 seconds behind.
Incidentally, Le Quatre's day wasn't made any easier yesterday when they temporarily forgot that you ride on the left-hand side of the road in Britain, and his team flew past their food without stopping, leaving their soigneur stranded with 6-pack lunches. He threw them into the back of the car, and last year's winner Romain Feuillu was sent back to fetch the musettes and share them out. The yellow jersey there, not only a terrific rider but also a thoroughly nice chap. Now, talking about thoroughly nice, Rachel Phillips is mixing it today in some pretty high-class company.
Yes, we're being joined by royalty today as Prince Charles is here. Now, officially, he's visiting the flooded areas of Morpeth, but I'm sure he's a Tour of Britain fan, and so we'll be trying to catch a glimpse of the race somewhere along the route. Now, we're in Morpeth town centre at the moment, and it was feared that the race wouldn't actually make it this far. At the weekend, this was severely flooded, and this stage of the race was actually under threat. But the water has subsided, the organisers are relieved, and so are the spectators too, who've been gathering all morning. Now, how bad was the flooding here at the weekend?
Absolutely horrendous. I mean, the whole of the town centre was underwater. It was really bad. Yeah.
So it's quite hard to believe that within just a few days the place is back to relative normality.
That's right. The water came up very quickly, but it went down very quickly too.
And you must be delighted that it's cleared, ready for the race.
Oh, definitely, because we were quite worried that the race wouldn't come through. But after all, it's just once in every so often that it does come through to Morpeth, so we're really pleased about it.
Yes, it's an excellent opportunity for people of the town to enjoy something.
Because there's a great atmosphere here, isn't there?
Oh, it's a great atmosphere. Never seen the town so busy. Hope they get rid of all the cars in time. It's good.
Well, the rain has stopped. The sun's not quite out, but everybody in Morpeth is getting ready to welcome the peloton.
Stage 6 continues to charge north, and the action is mostly front-loaded. After 45 miles, the 2 King of the Mountains climbs are done with, and then it's downhill most of the way through Morpeth, which survived a late pitch inspection. And the finish could hardly have a more spectacular backdrop, crossing the line on the southern shore of the River Tyne in the shadow of the Millennium Bridge. The journey today takes us from Darlington, through railway country, past the cathedral city of Durham, and into the heart of Tyneside. It actually finishes in Gateshead, which is on the south side of the river, and as a footnote to foreigners, never mix up Newcastle and Gateshead, as a pint of brown ale poured over your head often offends. But the reinvented backdrop of the River Tyne is a special sight indeed. Okay, that's enough messing around with words. High time we had some deeds. Let's join your race commentators, Hugh Porter and Anthony McCrossan.
Massive crowds have turned out here in Darlington to support the riders at the start of Stage 6 of the Tour of Britain, which takes the field to Newcastle Gateshead, a distance of 97 miles. Just gently rolling out, there's the yellow jersey, Le Quatre of Agletubel. No doubt he's got a few problems on his mind. Hugo Peña, who was very active yesterday. So at the moment they're all friends, but believe me, when the flag gets pulled in, it'll be full speed. 7 miles per hour then, the wind speed, and 16 degrees. There's Russell Downing of the Candy TV Pinarello racing team, and I can tell you, their manager Phil Griffiths had a meeting with them last night and said, look, don't be afraid of reputations, let's see you attacking today, and maybe one of you can slip down the road and achieve a stage victory.
Well, here is the front of the peloton, and a rider at the front is Evan Oliphant of the Ploughman Craven racing team, nonchalantly riding up this little climb as we head away from the start. But it looks like Oliphant's decided that maybe he's just going to test the legs out a little bit, and immediately a reaction.
We're barely a kilometre into the race as well, Anthony, and look at this, McGee, he's trying to come across. Now McGee is a very experienced bike rider. He's worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, he's wore the pink jersey in the Tour of Italy, and he's been an Olympic champion. Now another rider trying to come across the gap, looks like one of the members of the Candy TV Pinarello squad. So Phil Griffiths' meeting the night before has certainly sparked them into action.
Well, McGee suddenly exerts a little bit more pressure at the front. He's keen to get this breakaway going, and yesterday he was one of the early attackers as well. It's amazing how Oliphant went away there. He didn't look like he was even going to attack. He looked like he was just getting his legs turned over.
Well, you just saw a glimpse of the number there, and it's actually Peter Williams that's gone across to the other two. Peter Williams, a 21-year-old from Chorley. And there is the caption to confirm the composition of this little leading group. Now the shots do show another rider in the distance. We're not quite sure who that is, but the colours from this distance look as though it could be a rider from Barlow World.
Well, at the moment there is certainly a rider who is about 10 seconds off the back of this leading trio as they start to establish a nice breakaway. The gap between them and the peloton already around about the 30-second mark. In fact, just been confirmed at 28 seconds. The peloton taking things nice and steady.
Well, obviously we've got two races going on now, because these kind of riders who have got no chance at all to threaten for the overall victory will try and nip off to secure a stage. Now it is Caccia that you can see from Barlow World, a 27-year-old Italian, and he's the man that's trying to get up to the three that are ahead.
Well, we've got used to Caccia being in the early breakaways. He was in the breakaway yesterday with Danilo De Luca and Matt Goss very early on in the stage, and now he's managed to race across to the leaders.
So the junction is made, and now this quartet are going to set about sharing the workload evenly, and there's a good chance that this group could establish a handsome lead.
Well, of course, before this stage started, we'd covered 459 miles, the average speed over 26 miles an hour, and it looks like there's going to be no let up in the pace today. Immediately, Agritubel have to do their work at the front.
They'll be content to just keep the rhythm high at the head of the field, and this will play very nicely into the successful defence of the overall lead that they have with the yellow jersey, and that, of course, is Geoffroy Lecat.
This is the 27-year-old Caccia. Well, it took him a long time to get across to the leaders. In fact, around about 8 miles before he managed to get across, so he's struggling here.
Now, one of the men that can take a breather today is the leader on the Eon King of the Mountains. That's Ben Swift, because he has quite a handsome lead in that competition. So this will not affect his overall lead at all. Christian House is the nearest man that could challenge him, so he needn't take part in any of the mountain climbs today. There's only two gentle ascents, and they're both third category.
Well, of course, the first climb comes up at Langley, then we go down through the first sprint of the day before we climb back up to High Barnes. Not difficult climbs at all today, Hugh, as you've mentioned. There's Brad McGee looking quite relaxed.
So McGee on the front, Oliphant second place, Caccia third, and fourth is Peter Williams. We'll take a break. Welcome back, and you're looking here at the four leaders who are working very nicely, and they're approaching the first climb of the day.
Well, the gap is already over 6 minutes. They're working well together. The first climb of the day will take us up a climb of 1.4 miles up to the top of Langley, and a large crowd awaits the riders. We're about to turn onto it now.
And Langley comes 26 miles into this stage, and here we are. This is the start. Nothing to really hurt the legs. They're both third category affairs. I mentioned this earlier in the commentary, and Williams is having a little chat there with the rider from Ploughman Craven. That's Oliphant.
Well, here is the Agritubel team on the front yet again. The team time trial formation with Lecat there in the yellow jersey. Here is Caccia, looking quite relaxed and controlled now that he's calmed down after that long chase to get across to these leaders. But he's got a fantastic climbing style, just levering those pedals over.
Very tall rider, Caccia, rangy, and at the side of him, McGee. McGee's had so much trouble with his back. I was talking to him actually in Beijing, and he said it's a sciatic problem, and once this kicks in, the pain is so intense, he has to spend a long time off the bike. McGee, of course, has been around a long time on the pro scene, 32 years of age now, getting probably towards the end of his career.
Well, he lives down in Monaco, and I think that problem actually started when he was just doing some gardening one day before the Tour de France, and ever since he's suffered badly. Well, look at the riders, a nice steady tempo being set to the top of the climb. Looks like they've decided to stay together.
And Peter Williams 21-year-old from Chorley, just at the back there. Well, he knows the area well. He had a second place in the Beaumont Trophy road race earlier in the year in this area, where he was just pipped to the top spot by the national champion Rob Hales. But it's McGee just dancing there on the pedals, lightly, keeping the tempo up for the 4.
It's fantastic for a youngster like Williams to get experience of riding against these top professionals who have done so much in their career. And of course, yesterday we saw Travis Meyer in the breakaway, and this morning he was saying it was amazing to be riding with De Luca in a break, and he learnt a lot.
Well, the pace is being lifted all the time by the Agri-Tubel team, and on the front there was Bichot, Freddie Bichot. I can't understand why, because they could let these 4 slip away and try and nail a stage victory, because the highest placed of the 4 is Evan Oliphant, the Scot, and he's 34th in the general classification, 13 minutes behind the yellow jersey. But they're getting ever nearer the summit here of this first climb of the day, and Williams looks as though he's getting ready to have a crack at trying to beat Oliphant over the top, but there's no urgency here in the arrival to the line, and it's going to be the Scot Evan Oliphant that picks up the 4 points for getting across the line ahead of the rest.
Well, what a fantastic crowd at the top of this climb. There's confirmation of the result. Oliphant first, Williams in second, Kachia in third. McGee makes up the quartet. Oliphant, a rider who was previously funded by the Braveheart Fund, which enables young Scottish riders to progress their career, and of course was the Scottish Road Race champion in 2007. Looking good today.
He's represented Scotland in the Commonwealth Games. He's a very strong rider. He rides well on the track as well. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think he comes from Wick, which is right up there in the north of Scotland.
You're right, Hugh. As we move on towards the next point on the horizon, the sprint point at Harelaw. And again, at the front, it's Vigondi, the champion. The gap now 5 minutes and 30, starting to fall a little bit, and the school's out in force again.
And it was interesting at the start, because there were a lot of school children there, and they'd all taken on board one team to support.
Yeah, they'd learnt, each individual school, all about the team that they were going to support, and they were introduced to the crowd, which of course meant there was an awful lot of cheering this morning at the stage start, as we see Garmin Chipotle now assisting with the chase, which is interesting. That kind of signifies that they want this to end in a bunch sprint at Newcastle Gateshead.
And the reason for that is, of course, they'd be trying to get Julian Dean to the line first, the New Zealand champion. So I think that the big teams still want to get more stage victories under their belt. That is why the pressure is being applied at the head of the main field. McGee still there on the head of the quartet that have now been away for a long time. Remember, they gave the field a slip inside the first kilometre, and now look at this, the single line, the long single line, and that is the indication that the pressure is being applied at the front.
Approaching 40 miles an hour now in the peloton. It's full gas as they start to chase this breakaway down, and of course there are points on the line here as well as seconds.
It was Trent Lowe that was turning the screw actually on the front of the main field. There is the confirmation of the first sprint of the day, and it was Peter Williams that picked up the points there. So still quite a long way to go, but the bunch are becoming a lot more active now as they start to chase down the leading 4. Well, when we're hungry, we can just pick a sandwich up. How do the riders deal with hunger? Let's join Rachel Phillips, who will explain.
Well, they've cycled hundreds of kilometres through some treacherous weather conditions and up some gruelling climbs. Now, as well as the riders' supreme levels of fitness, another thing they rely on is food. And I'm at today's feeding station with John from Ploughman Craven. John, talk us through what you're packing up for the riders here.
Selection of things, little bits of cake, some drinks, energy bars, energy gels, stuff that'll just get them through the finish.
And I'd say there's a lot of pressure on you. By the time they get here, they must be very, very hungry.
It can be stressful on times, you know, but we do our best. And when you're doing it all the time, it's not such an issue, so everything should be okay.
And feeding time is a slick operation. Riders have just seconds to grab a bag, giving a whole new meaning to the term fast food. So Thomas, the food bag must be so vital.
Yeah, it is. It's important in the longer stages. In the shorter stages, we can bring enough in our pockets that, you know, cover the distance. We consume about 400 calories an hour during the race.
And you can only access that once on the stage, but you also carry food with you, don't you?
Yeah, we have also food in our jersey. And for myself, more or less, every 10-15 k's I try to eat one piece of food.
So having stocked up with a bag full of energy food, riders can plough on, knowing supplies are now within arm's reach. Thanks for all your help today, John. The thing is, the crew seem to have abandoned me and a bit peckish. You couldn't sort us out, could you?
Of course we can sort it out. A
Lovely.
little bit of everything, there you go.
Oh yeah, I'll take all of that. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Well done, Rachel. You know I like muffins.
Well, let's hope we see her at the finish. Back to the breakaway, and we've got Oliphant on the front looking urgent again. This gap is dropping, so he wants to get a little bit more impetus into this four-man breakaway and see if they can maintain their lead. Look at this, Hugh. We're at the feed.
That's ironic, isn't it? We've just been talking about food and now they've arrived here to collect their food. Now, if you haven't seen riders sweeping through a feeding station in the past, let me just tell you what happens. The helpers hold out a musette, and that is a bag, and what happens if you have the good technique, you put your left arm through the straps and you put it over your shoulder and then take out what is in the bag and put it in your back pockets. It's a very dangerous part of the race. Here we go, let's see how Williams gets on. Oh, completely missed it. He will not be very pleased with that.
No, a shake of the head. Now this is a problem because Williams of course has got to make sure he fuels his body all the way along the route, not just for today but for another couple of tough days that are coming up in the Tour of Britain. McGee's quite happy, he's got lunch. Here comes a team car.
Now Phil Griffiths is the manager of the Candy TV Pinarello racing team, so he's trying to hand up the musette to Williams, but Williams seems quite content. He doesn't want to take any food, so he's happy.
Well, that might be a mistake, not for today but maybe for tomorrow. But back here to the peloton, and the riders are going to go through the feed zone here. Specialetti on the front with De Luca in his wheel. De Luca, what a frustrating days he's had. 2 third places in a row. We've got to see if he can get a stage win today.
Specialetti is one of the big domestiques in the Italian LPR team. He's the kind of fella that gets on the front and churns away with a big gear, keeping the pace high to look after the leaders of the squad. Level crossing here. Pleased to say it is open. Quite often in races they arrive at level crossings and they close, which causes a lot of frustration.
Well, we're now 83 kilometres from the finish and this gap is starting to drop. 3 minutes and 49 seconds, and Williams is asking for his team car. We move on now to the next climb of the day, which is High Barnes. High Barnes takes us up a climb of 1.1 mile, but the peloton in full cry now. De Luca in second place.
And it's Specialetti on the front, De Luca sitting second, and the LPR team are now beginning to ramp up the pace. And that obviously sends a signal to everybody else that they want to get Alessandro Patacchi to the head of the main field to look for another stage victory. Now Williams is taking some advice here of Phil Griffiths, the team manager of the Candy TV Pinarello squad. Now Phil Griffiths himself was a very handy bike rider, won a silver medal in the Commonwealth Games many years ago and was many times the British Best All-Round Time Trial champion, so he's done a bit.
Peter Williams takes a power bottle out of the car and slings himself back onto the back of the group to make sure he stays in the wheels. Kachia setting a fast tempo up this climb, and of course as the gap starts to come down, the peloton will get the chance to see the riders. Look at De Luca setting things up, I think, for the LPR team.
He really has committed himself totally here in this Tour of Britain bike race, and he said quite openly in interviews at the start, this is my final preparation for the World Championships, so we'll be looking for De Luca in the Azzurro blue colours to do something special in Varese. But the riders at the front will know exactly what is going on because their managers will speak to them. A lot of the riders are wired for sound.
Well, of course, De Luca wants to ride the World Championships and he's on the shortlist, but he doesn't have a confirmed place, and he's got to impress Ballerini, the team manager of the Italian squad, to make sure he can ride. But surely after this, he will definitely ride the World Championships. To the top of the King of the Mountains now, Hugh.
Just to recap on that comment there, the Italians keep their team very close to their chest and never really declare it to the last moment. There is confirmation, and it was Peter Williams that topped it first from Kachia, Oliphant and McGee.
Well, he's enjoying his time today in this leading group, Peter Williams, as they go over the top of the climb now. and we're going to go on to a fairly difficult descent which has got a lot of mud on it and a little bit of grit, so let's hope we don't start to see some crashes or some punctures as we head towards the next point on the horizon. We are heading to Morpeth now.
Well, Williams has just completed his degree course in sports science, so now he can concentrate fully on his bike riding. Shot of one of the riders in the Columbia team there. They're having a nice quiet day today. Remember, there's 2 more stages to go after this, and tomorrow when we head into Scotland there's a big climb for the riders to negotiate.
Well, tomorrow could be showdown day. As the riders signed on this morning, Steve Cummings did say tomorrow is the day that he's got to try and get the 6 seconds back.
And it is De Luca on the left then, pulling the field along here in a determined mood. You can just see Vagondi, the French champion, behind De Luca. We'll take a break. Welcome back, and I can tell you that the 4 leaders are now nearing the second sprint of the day at Morpeth.
And the lead is starting to tumble. 2 minutes and 59 seconds as we approach the sprint.
And there's a sense of urgency creeping into the bunch behind now as the riders are beginning to ramp the pace up because they want to get their sprinters to the finish in with a chance of clinching a stage. McGee at the front, continuing here to keep the rhythm high. And then it's Oliphant coming through, followed by the Italian on the Barlow World squad, that's Caccia. And then at the back, although coming through now to take his turn, is Peter Williams.
I'm looking here at Evan Oliphant about what he's doing. He keeps looking at his front wheel and he bounced it a moment ago. I wonder if he's thinking he might have a slow puncture in that front tyre. Let's hope not. Of course, if the rain comes down later on, that will cause all sorts of issues for these riders on these slippy roads.
So the second sprint of the day in Morpeth getting ever nearer. And Prince Charles has been a visitor to this part of the world today. And if we think back to last Saturday, there were floods in Morpeth, and at one point there was talk that the race might need to be rerouted.
Well, let's take a look at who wins this sprint. Caccia on the front again. I'm just hearing that Danilo De Luca as well has had a puncture and chasing back into the peloton.
It really is all academic who does take the sprints because they are not figuring in the competition, and I can tell you that Danilo De Luca will pick up the jersey in the presentations at the end of the stage because he has 17 points, 2 ahead of his teammate Ameti. But of course there's pride at stake, and it's always nice to get your name at the top of any competitions during a stage.
Well, simultaneous drinking of a little bit of sugar by the 2 riders from Garmin-Chipotle at the front of the group. And the approach to this sprint is slightly uphill.
And you can tell that as well because a couple of the riders were out of the saddle, just stretching their legs there, and just one left, the big fella at the back, who is much taller than the rest, and that is Caccia. As McGee, with that nice relaxed style, with the hands on the top of the bars, just pulls the rest of the breakaway along.
Well, of course, after this sprint, we're going to head down to the coast through to Seaton Sluice for the next sprint. But McGee, you'll notice, Hugh, he hasn't shaved today, which is the normal, a little bit of superstition for the riders. It gives them a little bit more strength if they're going to go out on a long breakaway.
The mean look, the race face then is being shown here by McGee, this very talented Australian. I remember many years ago coming across this fella in my records when he held the World Junior 3,000 metre record when he won that crown on a couple of occasions, and since then he's gone on to win the Senior World Pursuit title and many other great gold medal victories to his credit.
Well, we're nearly at the sprint point now. It's taken us a little bit of time to get there. You'll notice Evan Oliphant has got his power cranks on today, keeping a little bit of a track on how much power output he's producing as this stage continues. Over the sprint line now.
There's the line at Morpeth, and it was Caccia that took the maximum points. There's the rest of the result confirmed for you. So the riders have now got 68 miles under the wheels as they're starting to set themselves up for the run into the finish.
Well, the peloton in full cry as they race towards this breakaway, and it's still the Garmin-Chipotle team on the front with Magnus Backstedt. Caccia setting a very fast pace as we head towards the coast.
And of course the next sprint will be at Seaton Sluice, And that's the final gallop of the day before the deciding charge for the line to see who is going to clinch the stage. Well, rain is starting to fall slightly now, which is going to make the top surface slippy, and those lines need to be avoided.
Well, look at that, lovely views of the coastline here as the riders start to sprint up towards Seaton Sluice.
And of course this is where the surfers come into the northeast. This is where they do their surfing, as we see Andy Tennant, the former junior World Pursuit champion, on the front here doing some good work for the British team.
Well, it's going to suit their sprinters, this finish, as we head through Newcastle and over the bridge into Gateshead. Maybe they're thinking of Rob Hales today.
And when the rain is falling, of course, the top surface can become glacial, particularly on those lines, and they need to be treated with a lot of caution. If you just lay your bike over slightly too much and you touch a line, you could go down very easy.
Well, the pace goes up yet again at the front with Kachia. He's pretty urgent about this breakaway. It's a good day for the Barlow world. He's taking the pressure off Steve Cummings.
Well, the line is getting ever nearer. They'll just ride through it. They won't bother gathering themselves to sprint for the points because they don't figure, as I've mentioned many times earlier in commentary, in the overall standings in the competition.
Well, let's see who takes this one, and then we will set ourselves up for the fast run to the finish.
Well, it was Oliphant that was crossing the line first, and he was just ahead of Williams. And here we are, the field beginning to whip the pace up as we can confirm that result at Seaton Sluice. And right near the front are the LPR team in the grey, and there's the yellow jersey. He must be quite happy with the situation here because the Italian squad are pulling the Agritubel team along rather nicely.
Well, Specialetti at the front for the LPR team. He is setting a scintillating pace along the coast, and they're enjoying a little bit of a tailwind now.
Well, there is a left-hander coming up shortly, and this is where caution will be needed. As you can see that the field is just beginning to fracture a little bit at the front as riders grovel to stay in the wheel, which tells us that the pace is on. 25 kilometres remaining now.
And look at the time gap, 1 minute and 57 seconds. Remember, this gap was over 6 minutes at one point.
So what have they got left in the tank, these four? How much do they want this stage victory? The managers will have sent the news up to them, and they'll know exactly what the developments are behind, so they've got to try and raise their game. Tennant continues to lift the pace on the front, the young fella from Wolverhampton who is now based in Italy.
Well, the pace certainly is about as fast as you can go right now on a bike. Look at this, the arrowhead formation at the front of the peloton, signifying just how fast these riders are going.
This is that left-hander I referred to. Now, caution required here. Watch those lines. They are very, very slippy. Well, they look okay to me. Whoa, having said that, look at that for a fall. It's the Italian then on the Barlow World team, Kachia, that's gone down. And let's just take another look at this. He touched the line, and then I think the wheel just twitched, and he tried to rectify it, and now he's heading to the curb, and he has gone down very, very heavily.
Well, he's taking a little bit of time to get back up. Of course, he's got to check his bike here. The chain's off, but of course we've got to check the frame and the pedals and everything and get back up on that machine as quickly as possible. But the chase is going to be difficult because it's fast and it's slippy.
Well, he's given his elbow a real bang there, and there's no way he's going to pick the three up again, so he will just take it easy and wait for the bunch. We'll pick up the final action after the break. Well, the closing action is unfolding now, and these three are still trying to stop the main field scooping them up.
Well, they've been away for the entire stage today, and Williams looking round. He must be a tired man. He's the youngest rider in this breakaway, but here is the move at the front. It's the Team Columbia. Maybe they want another stage win for Bosenhagen.
Well, he's capable of doing it. He's got great strength, but you could just see through the trees there a glimpse of the main field. So as we're getting ever nearer to the finish now, the bunch are boring down on the breakaway group.
Well, this gap is under half a minute now, and these three riders are going to have to get a move on. Now an attack at the front. It's Peter Williams of the Candy TV Pinarello Racing Team. So the youngster goes for it, and he is leaving Oliphant behind.
Well, this younger lad from Chorley having a go now, but has he got the power? McGee sees this and he's trying to get back up to him.
Well, the experienced Aussie is just turning the pedals over and coming ever closer. Look at the speed in the peloton. They're going to catch Oliphant any moment now.
So all the hard work to try and clinch a stage victory looks as though it's evaporating here, but it is McGee now that's gone past Williams, and McGee now starting to bury himself to try and clinch a lone victory.
Well, this is his terrain. He loves to be out on his own, time trialling away. This is what this man has trained all his life for. He's got to pursue his way to the finish over this little crest and then a fast descent to the finish in Newcastle Gateshead.
And all the riders will be trying to get a high place here at the finish, because remember, there's several other competitions to try and maintain your place in, particularly the green jersey.
The green jersey, the two riders in that competition equal on points. 39 points for Hammond, 39 points for Goss in that competition, sponsored by Bikeability today.
So how much longer is this Australian going to stay out in the lead? Well, it's about 250 metres and it's pegged at the moment, so stubborn resistance being shown here by the former World Pursuit champion. But it's a big ask and I can't see him being able to keep the field away.
Well, let's not forget, though, the other day, Emilian Burgess of Agritubal managed to do this. So could McGee stay away for the finish? As you've said, Hugh, a big ask, but this is the man who could do it.
Long, empty roads in front of him. It's all about concentration here. It's almost like a time trial, isn't it? The race of truth. Can he do it? Can he hold off the field, who with every pedal rev are beginning to lift the pace?
There are so many riders who want to win this stage because, of course, tomorrow we have got the terrain of the mountains. We're going to go over some very hefty climbs, so it won't be a day for the sprinters. Look at the speed. They're crawling ever closer to him now.
And McGee is going to get swept up, and it's not long now. And you can see the colours beginning to mass at the front, the colours of the teams that, of course, want to look after their sprinters. Inevitably, it is the colours of the LPR Brakes team, the Italian team, hoping, of course, for a second stage victory with Pataki. And you can also see Barlow World up there in the red with that yellow band round. And they're looking after Steve Cummings, because if Cummings could snatch a bonus here, let's not forget that he's only 6 seconds behind the overall race leader, Geoffroy Lecat of the Agritubal team. So there's a lot at stake here now.
Let's set the scene of the finish. You go plunging down the descent through the 1 kilometre point. You swing left over the bridge of the Tyne. Then you swing further left into the finish. It's about 400 metres to the line. It is a day for the sprinters now. The cavalry are charging and the trains are being set up.
Well, they're beginning to pour the coals on the fire here, aren't they, now, as the pace increases. And there is the long, thin line at the front. And it was interesting to see that the Agritubal squad were right up there in the mix, and the yellow jerseys keeping out of danger. He's not laying back in the wheels in case there was a crash, because that would be very costly. He's sitting about fourth, so he can just flick out and not get in any danger.
Just a quick update for you, Hugh. I heard that Russell Downing has had to fight his way back into this peloton. He crashed just a little while ago, or had a mechanical problem, but he's now racing his way through the cars, and we just need to catch a glimpse of him here, because of course this finish will suit him as well.
Just caught a glimpse, I think it's the stocky figure of Roger Hammond that's not far away from the front as well. Remember, he was a World Junior Side-Load Cross champion, so these kind of conditions will not be a problem for him. He was also third in Paris-Roubaix, and also near the front is Boasson Hagen, who's had 2 stage victories back-to-back. Wow, what a story that would be if he could win a third.
Moving up on the right-hand side, well, what a lead-out man. Robbie Hunter leading out, Steve Cummings on the left. Rob Hales, the British road race champion.
Hales in the white jersey with the red and blue hoops. What a lovely story that would be if he could win the stage today. His wife Vicky, who comes from near here, is on the line with their daughter Maddie, and Vicky's father is there with them. Vicky, of course, a former swimmer, winner of a silver medal in the Commonwealth Games in the 400 metres freestyle a few years back.
Well, moving over on the right-hand side is the Garmin Chipotle team with Julian Dean. Can Dean get a stage win today, of course. As we've mentioned previously, he has won the green jersey in this race. Here come Great Britain, and Ben Swift is coming up to the wheel of Rob Hales. So the British riders looking like they want this stage win, and look, there is a split in the peloton here, Hugh.
Significant split, and these are the riders that are going to be in with a chance of clinching the stage victory. Ben Swift, what a talent he is. Not only is he leading the King of the Mountains, he's got a good turn of speed because he served his apprenticeship on the track, so if Swift's in with a chance, he could turn a nifty pedal. But look, it's Hales at the front, the national road race champion, who's also of course won medals on the track in the Olympics, in particular in the Madison with Bradley Wiggins when they finished third in Athens. And it's Hales licking his lips here at the thought of a stage victory. There is Pataki as well, 2 further back.
You've got to marvel, though, at the depth of the talent in this British team overall. You've got Rob Hales there, you've got Ben Swift, but I just noticed Johnny Bellis coming up to the front for the Team CSC Saxo bag, and he'll be looking to lead out Matt Goss, sitting on the wheel now of Stuart O'Grady.
Well, young Bellis, of course, the Manx man who finished third in the World Under-23 Road Championships last year in Stuttgart. And he is, of course, serving his apprenticeship on the team. There he is, second wheel back. So Bellis getting a good lead out here.
Well, O'Grady setting a prolific pace down the descent. It's not far now till we hit the 1 kilometre to go point, and then they will set themselves up for this fast left-hander. We're on the banks of the Tyne now. There's the 1 kilometre to go.
And there is a left-hander that has to be negotiated before they whip round left again into the finishing funnel, where a massive crowd are waiting for the arrival of the riders who are coming to the end of this 97-mile stage. There's that left-hander. It was taken cautiously, but they're all upright, I'm pleased to say. This is the next bridge over the Tyne, and then it'll be left into the finishing funnel, and you can see that the riders are beginning to gather themselves here now, ready for this big charge for the line. Hales was right up there near the front, and so was Johnny Bellis, but also menacingly is the sprint king himself from Italy, the Express, Alessandro Pataki. Now they're beginning to lift the pace up now, and it is Bellis near the front. Pataki's up there as well. You can see Hales third wheel back, and the rider from Colombia is coming through as well. This is Boasson Hagen looking for a third stage victory in a row. Boasson Hagen on the right, really beginning to lift the pace here. Hales squeeze him against the barrier, and coming on the right as well now in the grey is Pataki. Hales is leading, the line is getting ever nearer, and it's Hales on the right, Pataki on the left. Pataki takes his second stage victory of the tour to add to the one that he won in London, and it was Hales that finished second in London to him, and he finishes second again today.
And where have we seen that before? Pataki and Hales, the 1-2. Pataki obviously hadn't listened to Hales' pre-race interview when he told us he was after the stage win, but then the big Italian eats finishes like this for his antipasti. In your whole career now, how many wins? How many races have you won?
105, 2.
152.
52. Today, in the last kilometers, very difficult because the rain, no good street, and I stay always in front. Nothing in the 300 meter to go. I started the sprint and a good sprint.
The yellow jersey finished safely in the first bunch, but behind him there was damage. Several splits meant that the riders shed seconds and indeed whole minutes all over the roads of the northeast. Last man in was Diego Caccio, part of the doomed four-man break.
Well, it's good to be in the break, and it was always going to be tough to stay away. And then when one of the guys fell, we started taking it a bit easy on the corners. I don't think people wanted to fall off, so the bunch was closing. It was always going to be hard to stay away, so it was still good to be in the break though.
90 places better off than him on the day then, Alessandro Pataki, showing that in the big bunch on the line, no one in this field can match him. Rob Hales by now sick of the sight of Pataki's hunched shoulders. Boasson Hagen on a hat-trick but beaten into third. Dan Martin, Geoffroy Lecatre and Steve Cummings kept in touch with the winner, but the unpost pair of De Schroeder and Fleeman, as well as Ian Stannard and Gabriele Bossiccio, finished after a split of 5 seconds. Ben Swift holds on to a 10-point lead in the mountains competition. Danilo De Luca picked up nothing out there today, but still wears the sprint jersey, albeit now only by a 2-point margin. But the day's racing edged Geoffroy Lecatre one stage closer to overall victory. And when he glances at this table tonight before nodding off, he'll crack a little smile. 4 of his closest rivals, Bossisio, Stannard, Fleeman and De Schroeder, all slip 5 seconds further back on that slippery run-in to Gateshead. Well, Paul Manning, call me a killjoy, but I've got a suspicion that the bunch has left us too late and that they're pinning too much hopes on what they can do tomorrow.
I'd agree with that, Ned. I think people are over-emphasising the severity of that first cat climb for tomorrow, and I think they'll have limited opportunity to make the damage that they need to.
This is the Mennock Pass you're talking about. We spoke to a Scottish truck driver today, didn't we? He drives up it regularly, and he sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, "Well, how hard is that?" But then again, he's driving a 10-ton truck, not
this is
not a
it.
road
You know,
bike.
it's the conditions, the wind, the road surfaces. They're the hard things. Are those kind of roads, and it may be enough to split the bunch. But I think there's too many guys that are going to be pushing for that make it hard to break up the bunch.
Well, day by day, I tell you, the yellow jersey is sounding more and more confident, and why not? This is what he had to say to me after today's stage.
We do the good job too today. The team do the really good first part of the stage, and after we can be in the wheel because the other team would like to help us, and well, it was perfect for us. Yeah.
Now, a note for your diaries, 8:30 is our on-air time tomorrow. That's when you'll catch the highlights of the Tour of Britain, as opposed to our usual start time of 8 o'clock. In the meantime, well done to the people up here in Newcastle and Gateshead. Big crowds despite the weather, and a really stunning backdrop for the stage finish today. In fact, Paul, we're spoiling the view. Get out of the shot.